Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher, and we're looking at our final time at the Fire Mage. Yeah, it's been a while since we played it. It was quite cool to go back and have a little look-see, but I have to say it's been changed and switched around, and it's pretty much exactly the same as it was in Mists of Pandaria, for good or bad. This is entirely a subjective point of view. I think a lot of people have mixed views on the Fire Mage. I used to love it. And I say the word used to. I'm kind of done with it now, if I'm being honest. The Fire Mage plays as it does in Mop, which means you'll be firing off them fireballs. You get a crit, you'll be using your Infernal Blast to proc that pyro, and then you'll be kind of heating up and then firing off as many pyros to build ignites, then use your combustion, which has been heavily nerfed into the ground, and currently doesn't seem to be worth the paper it's printed on, but still, it is something rather than nothing. And that's about it. Yeah, end of video. Bye-bye. Not really, but that is pretty much how it's going to play. I think a lot of the stuff we should look at is exactly how the talents work. So, the talents that you get for a Fire Mage, your Living Bomb is now part of a talent tree that's mixed with Unstable Magic and Blast Wave. Unstable Magic is where your Fireball has a 30% chance to explode and deal damage. It's uncontrolled, but seems to have the most single target DPS gain. It does mean that your single target does gain an increased amount of damage. Your Living Bomb is obviously great when you're actually spreading things out. I've been doing a little bit of LFR on the beta, which was quite cool, especially certain bosses where you can actually do some very quick AoE. You can throw out some Living Bombs and they do start to mount up in their damage, and guaranteed. Obviously with Unstable Magic you are not guaranteed the proc to explode. With Living Bomb you can fire off as many as you want. They are no longer limited, which means you can just spam them all over the place, and they tend to go off and do serious amounts of fucking damage. Very nice. Rune of Power still exists, and seemingly, and it saddens me to say so, seems to be the best choice for the Fire Mage. Notice how I'm not using it. Rune of Power can suck a dick. I will recommend it in guides. I will not play it. Simple as that, because it's fucking awful. I can't stand that spell. It deserves no place in this game. Remove, please. On top of that, we get Mirror Image, which is a decent cooldown, which I prefer. For burst moments and controlled moments, I love the idea of mirror images, and I like DPS cooldowns in general. I prefer to have a control over when my burst goes up. I like that. That tends to be better, in my opinion. But obviously, overall, in the grand scheme of things, certain things work out better, such as Rune of Power. So be it. Level 100 talents is where I really want to look a little focused, because they are a little bit on the weaker side, I think, and potentially will cause a lot of problems. And this is what a lot of people are complaining about with the Fire Mage, is that the level 100 talents are seemingly a bit iffy. Meteor is Meteor. It's very cool. Meteor is very cool. It tends to be my choice because I find it the most fun. And dropping a Meteor on things is very cool. It's very Fire Mage. If you could summon a Pyro Blast, then you should be able to summon Meteors. I actually really prefer it. It also causes Ignite. It does lots of damage. It's very, very nice. Prismatic Crystal. It tends to be the go-to for mages at the moment because it does a lot of damage. It also seems to buff your damage meters, and who doesn't like that if you're playing a mage? I think it's very weak on fire. Prismatic Crystal no longer allows cleave, which is a big part of fire, is spreading things around. And Prismatic Crystal just does not do that anymore in order to balance it somewhat. So you can't use things like combustion on it and spread that around and get some ridiculous things going, which would have been nice. I hope they kind of put that back. Currently, as it stands, I've tried it out in a few different ways. You just can't get anything done with it. And Fire Mage tends to have a lot of cast time. Now, what you can do is kind of prepare for it, and that is how you're going to use it as fire. It's still seemingly, according to the current state of beta, which is always in flux, to be the biggest DPS increase. If you line it up nicely with procs and lots of pyros flying in and all that kind of shit, then you can get some very good, can't get my words out, very good results out of Prismatic Crystal. I certainly prefer Crystal on Frost and Arcane, as it's slightly easier to set that up and you're not as hit and hope, which is always the way of fire, is a bit hit and hope with things happening. Kindling, this one seems to be the big question mark. Kindling is your Fireball, Pyroblast, and Infernal Blast crits. Reduce the cooldown of combustion by 1 second. Yes, 1 second. Doesn't seem a lot, does it? And in early stages of gear, 1 second ain't going to do that much. In that period of time, you're not going to be critting enough to see any noticeable difference out of that. This is one of those things, though, that people are really worried about. Fire is notoriously fucking bad at scaling. Scaling is the death nail of fire, and fire tends to get nerfed every single fucking patch because gear scales, crit scales, pyros start flying like nobody's business, and suddenly you're all in a whole world of fucking hurt as far as Blizzard is concerned, because fire starts doing outrageous amounts of damage with huge ignites rolling all the time. Kindling seems like one of those things that's either going to be suck or be overpowered and have a very small window where it's actually balanced. If you're chaining crits constantly, you're going to fire out a lot more combustions. If you're chaining crits every other second, yes, then your combustion is going to be resetting a lot. Now, as I said, combustion doesn't hit very hard, so perhaps that's why they've balanced it around kindling, maybe. But obviously in the early stages, when you're not critting that much as we do have fire starter now, which kind of guarantees that we will get a pyro within 3 or 4 casts, it still doesn't seem to add up. So it seems like one of those dodgy spells that has no place here. I don't think anything that can be affected by outrageous scaling should exist for fire, because historically that ends badly. So that's how fire's playing right now. So if you've played it in MOP, you're pretty much going to be able to pick this up and just go straight ahead without having to relearn much, if anything. What's my personal thoughts on it? This is now the most boring mage spec for me, and that's really saddens me to say. I did not enjoy my time playing fire as much as I used to, and a couple of reasons for that. One, the playstyle is tired. It's very tired. As the other specs, Arcane included in this, which has now evolved, Frost has evolved a long way. Fire has not. Fire has remained pretty static now for 3 expansions, where the other 2 have actually grown and matured and adapted to the different things that are going on in the game. The ability to get the instant cast Pyroblast just isn't that entertaining anymore in comparison to what the other classes are throwing out there. If you can look at something like an Elemental Shaman that can chain huge amounts of lava bursts together alongside throwing things out like Chain Lightning and all that kind of other stuff, and you look at fire and you're like, you know what? This thing is kind of old now. Having an instant cast Pyroblast just ain't that big a deal anymore in terms of what's out there and what's available to all the other specs. And I think that's starting to really hurt it. Certainly if you look at specs that were very far behind, I would probably mention here a Moonkin. Moonkin, which was vastly behind in terms of playstyle, now absolutely dwarfs the capabilities of a Fire Mage. They're not even in the same league anymore in terms of playstyle and, for me, enjoyment. It's the first time I've really felt bored with fire. I've seen other people saying they're bored with fire once they have a high crit chance and everything happens pretty regularly. That it's very quickly that Pyroblast wears off. And now that Pyroblast is actually guaranteed, which brings me to my second point, with the Firestarter perk, where you're actually guaranteed to, if you don't crit, your chance to crit next time actually just grows and grows and grows, then, you know, it's less exciting. You know it's going to happen in the next couple of casts. You're not waiting for these really crazy moments where your pyro goes nuts, because that kind of happens all the time now. And that's one of those things. If it's not a really exciting moment, then it's a boring moment, or it's just a blasé moment that we don't really care about. And it falls kind of in the category of Frostfire Bolt, which is something we know is about to happen. It's cool when it does, allows us to move around, but it's not blowing my socks off, whereas there's other aspects of that spec in terms of Frost which do blow my socks off. And Fire has nothing else. Fire is completely reliant on the entertainment that you get from Instant Cast Pyroblast. Beyond that, there is absolutely nothing else Fire has going for it. And that's really starting to... the age is showing. The rust is starting to show on this spec. And it could do with a revamp probably next expansion. I'm not putting it in the ground. It still plays well. It still works wonderfully. And therefore, it's okay. But I think it's certainly one that's due for revision in the future. So that's my look at Fire. If you like Fire in MOP, you're probably going to like it in Warlords of Draenor. You might notice, as I did, with the ability to sort of guarantee that your Pyroblast is about to happen, that you get a little bit bored of it quicker than you ordinarily do. And that would be my final word on it. All right, guys, let's move on to Arcane. I'll see you later, guys. Bye-bye.